Hey y'all, I'm Alicia, and today I'm going to be going over all the books I read in April. It's a wrap-up, which I've never done before. I tend to do individual book talks, but I read 6 books in April that I did not make any notes for, that I don't want to do separate videos for, so I'm just doing them all in one. And it's been a couple weeks since I uploaded because April was super busy with the end of term, but I am back now, and let's just get into it. The first 3 books on my list are all about eating disorders in YA literature. Not about them, sorry, they portray eating disorders. And so I'll just start with this one. So the first book is Paperweight by Meg Haston. This one follows 17-year-old Stevie, who's going into an inpatient treatment facility for her eating disorder, which she has anorexia, which has turned into bulimia as she's kind of been binging more and purging. And basically it's her journey through, like, her journey to wanting to recover, to kind of not feeling as guilty over her mother abandoning her and her brother dying in a car accident a year ago. Throughout the book, she's determined to die on the anniversary of her brother's death, which is coming up. And so it's a very dark book. If you're not in the headspace for a dark, gritty book that deals with suicidal ideation, self-harm, eating disorders, anything like that, like, I strongly recommend staying away from this book until you are in the right headspace. But yeah, so that is what this book is about. Overall, I really enjoyed it. It was, again, quite dark, but there are, quite a few good characters, and I think the only thing I wanted to be different was that Stevie has a relationship with this girl named Eden, but it's a very manipulative, like, not healthy relationship. Eden is a very toxic person, and that was kind of a catalyst for the car accident and Stevie feeling really guilty over Josh dying. I should say that these 3 eating disorder novels I've read before. This was actually a reread specifically for this paper that I was writing. So, and again, I didn't make any extensive notes as to, like, the plot and stuff like that, so I don't have that many things to say about it other than if that sounds interesting to you, I highly recommend. I will say my favorite one out of all these 3, if you're looking for an eating disorder book, is Wintergirls by Laurie, Halse, Anderson. And I'll kind of get into why this one is my favorite. I guess I can just move on to this one next because I've said all I wanted to say about this one. This, again, is about a 17-year-old girl named Alicia who struggles with anorexia. She has recently gotten out of an inpatient facility and is now kind of responsible for her recovery at home. And the novel starts out with the death of her kind of ex-best friend, Cassie, who dies because of her own eating disorder. She had bulimia, and she actually died of a ruptured esophagus, and she had a lot of other bodily damage due to years of an eating disorder. And I mean, again, this book is really dark as well. I think these 2 are kind of similar in that way. They both have very similar tones, and very similar, obviously, plots. Not plots. Actually, I shouldn't even say that because, again, this does not take place in a facility, and Paperweight does. But again, it's the same cycle of the protagonist wanting, being suicidal, not wanting to die but not wanting to live, trying to deal with their eating disorder, having to deal with all those negative voices in their head, and kind of choosing for themselves to recover. And that is, again, this book is about her journey to doing that. I feel like I'm going to save my thoughts on basically these eating disorder books until after I've done the 3rd one as well, because I think there's a lot of similar themes among all of them that I'd just like to point out instead of doing, like, individual points for each one. So let's just move on to the 3rd one for a second. The 3rd eating disorder novel is What I Lost by Alexandra Ballard. This one follows, I think, 16-year-old, not 17-year-old, so 16-year-old Elizabeth, who, again, has anorexia, goes into an eating disorder facility for recovery, and it's her journey to wanting, for choosing for herself to recover, because, you can force someone into recovery, but you can't you can't force them to want to recover for them by themselves. That's something that they have to choose. So again, that's something that all 3 novels make very clear, is that it has to be the individual's choice of whether to recover or not. You can't just force someone to eat and be like, oh, you're cured. So I did like that. And so moving on to my discussion of all 3. All right, so my thoughts on these novels are they are all great choices for novels if you want to learn more about eating disorders, if you want to kind of relate to a character who has an eating disorder. I will kind of give a warning that Paperweight and Paperweight and Wintergirls are very graphic and very dark, and very, just very depressing, very violent. Not violent in terms of, like, bodily harm, although that is too, but, like, violent in terms of just their thoughts are so all-consuming and self-hating, and it's honestly, it's horrible to read. But yeah, so if you're looking for a lighter novel about eating disorders, I would highly recommend What I Lost. It's got a much lighter, happier tone. And Elizabeth isn't suicidal like the other two protagonists. So that's awesome. And I will say, though, that I am honestly looking for suggestions. So if anyone has any suggestions after hearing me rant about this, feel free to leave them in the comments. But these novels all feature, 16, 17-year-old white females in the United States who have been in clinic, inpatient treatment for their eating disorders. And inpatient, it mentions in the novels as well, but inpatient treatment is so expensive and it's not accessible to everyone. And there's a very specific type of eating disorder patient that I think goes into, at least according to these novels. Again, I'm not an expert in eating disorders. I've never been diagnosed with one. I have never, I haven't known anyone personally who's struggled with one to a great extent. So again, like, this is my view from the books. It might be different, so correct me if I'm wrong, but based on these books, it looks like patient treatment is reserved for people who are critically underweight and who need to be forced to be weight restored, or else they're going to die. Like, it's for patients in critical condition. I think I read a statistic where only 6% of people with eating disorders are medically diagnosed as underweight in the first place. So a lot of people don't really fit the criteria as the protagonists in these novels at all. That's not, what most people with eating disorders, that's not what they look like. And especially like in terms of how to access treatment, how the recovery process goes. Like, I don't think these novels portray an accurate depiction of that. Which, because this isn't most people's experiences with eating disorders, but it is, kind of the more, I don't want to say these novels do not glamorize eating disorders. That is one good aspect, but I do think they kind of fall into that trope of, the skinny white teenage girl in the States that has the eating disorder, when, there's a lot of people who don't look like that have eating disorders. Eating disorders do not discriminate. They don't only affect teenage girls. So as much as I liked these novels, and I do think they did, they're really good portrayals of eating disorders, and realistically, it does show a lot of the really harmful consequences of having an eating disorder. Like, it isn't glamorized. It's not fun and games. It's not, being skinny. Like, that's not what eating disorders are, and I think these do a good job of showing that. But I would just really like more novels that have a wider demographic of people affected, as well as more treatment options that are available. But, again, that's not something against these books. I'm just saying YA literature could be more expansive in terms of how they portray eating disorders in general. My fourth book is Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. I finished this book a couple weeks ago, and overall, I think I was slightly disappointed because I didn't feel emotionally invested. I really liked the storyline. I liked the characters, but that was it. Like, it didn't go into like, oh my god, like, oh, this character's my baby. Like, I want them to succeed. I want them to have everything in life. Like, it wasn't like that. I was just like, this character is annoying me because she's just so caught up in her head. And instead of making it relatable, it just felt annoying. Like, I don't know. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to. And I was really hopeful because the first half of the book, even though it was a bit slow getting into it, like, it did pick up, and I was really enjoying all these revelations that she was having and her relationships she was forming, and I was disappointed with how it turned out. So I don't know. I know a lot of people liked this book, so don't go on my word alone. I don't even know what to say. Like, I don't even know how to make videos anymore. Apparently, I took a month off, and now my brain is blanking on everything that I've ever read ever, and all the words I could use to describe these books. And yeah, so that was this book. I liked it. It wasn't great. I probably won't reread it in the future, but it has great reviews, so honestly, if you're interested, I would recommend checking it out. For those of you who don't know, it's about a girl who graduated from her PhD and is now having like a quarter-life crisis and decides to drop everything and go to New York to meet up with this girl that she drunkenly married in Las Vegas during a break a couple months previously. And so she literally calls this girl out of the blue. She has her phone number, and she's like, hey, we're married. Do you mind if I come visit you? Because I'm having like a mental breakdown right now, and my life is falling apart. And yeah, so it's about her moving in with her wife in New York, and that's where it goes from there. That's all I can give about it. So yeah, if you're someone who is struggling to kind of establish yourself, you don't know what you're doing, especially for those of you in your early 20s where you're out of university or college, and or out of, wherever you were, or out of a job, or whatever you're doing in your early 20s. I know all you people in your early to mid to late, even early 30s, and maybe past that, you don't know what you're doing with your life. This might be a good book for you. The next book on my list is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. I enjoyed this book, but again, it didn't wow me, and I feel like maybe I just didn't enjoy these books as much because I was so busy and stressed and just had a hard time being just reading. I was constantly distracted and on edge, I guess. So yeah, overall, this book didn't wow me. It was really interesting, and I think I will continue the series just because now it's a murder mystery. Like, I want to figure out what happens. But in terms of this book, the ending wasn't satisfying because it didn't wrap up enough questions, in my opinion. I get that it's a trilogy, and that maybe the murderer won't be, revealed until the very last book. Like, I don't know. But I just wanted some answers, and I wanted more of a, I don't know, it felt very anticlimactic. It was very slow, boring at parts, and there was just no payoff scene that it didn't build toward anything. So yeah, that's my hope for when it gets more into the series. I think it's a trilogy, so the second and third book, I do hope they pick up a bit. But overall, like, she's established some good characters, good plot, and I am curious to see what actually happens. Like, who killed Alice and, what was her name? The mother. I don't know. Who killed the mother? Is Alice still alive? Is it the same person or is it a copycat? Like, just all those things, and I'm really, I'm excited to see Stevie crack the case. So yeah, I will continue the series. The last book I read in April is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. It's the first in the trilogy. I'm sure everyone knows. I read this before I watched the show, and I've actually watched the show twice now. But I am currently reading the second book, and I am enjoying the series a lot more than I thought I would. Like, I'm actually mad at myself because I saw this series so many times in the public library and in the school library growing up, and I just never picked it up for some reason. I guess the covers like didn't intrigue me. But yeah, now I'm like, why didn't I? Like, I had so many opportunities to read it and I never did. And so I'm glad I picked it up now, and I really enjoyed the show. I think I'm gonna make a second video just about my thoughts about the show and like the adaptation portion of it. And yeah, just overall, I really enjoyed this book. I know it's a kind of a hit or miss. Some people really like the book, some people don't. So far, I do see the issues that some people are talking about. But overall, I think it was a really enjoyable story. Like, it's not 5 stars. It's not as good as the Six of Crows duology, in my opinion. But that being said, like, I'm really excited to finish the series. And after this, I think I will definitely reread the Six of Crows duology, and I want to read the King of Scars duology as well, because Nikolai, I'm actually currently reading the second book, and Nikolai is amazing. He's so funny. And so I will definitely want to read the other duology that Leigh wrote about it. But yeah, overall, like, there could be more characterization. The books are a bit, I don't know, the relationship between Mal and Alina isn't the best. They're both very jealous and insecure, especially in the second book. But overall, it was a good book. Yeah, but overall, I really enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend to people who have maybe watched the show and aren't sure whether to pick up the series. I would recommend you to pick up the series just because I'm really enjoying it, and I'm sure a lot of people who have watched the show and enjoyed it will enjoy the book, because honestly, it was a really faithful adaptation. Like, I was surprised at how faithful the adaptation was. There were a few small changes, which, again, I will probably discuss in my other video, but yeah, overall, I'm really happy with the adaptation. That is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and I will see you next time with another video. Thanks, everyone. Bye.